All right, so we just need to draw out 4 circles. Make them like about the size of, I don't really know a reference. Like if this is a sticky pad, make them like this big. So small enough to where they would stick within a sticky note. So I'm just gonna lightly sketch this out. They don't have to be perfect, just as best as you can get it. Do 4 of those. I like to just make kind of little sketchy lines along the way. That circle is really big. Oh well. All right. The edges aren't perfect, no big deal, because we're going to be kind of writing along the edges anyway, so you'll probably create the edge for yourself that way. All right, next we need to label them. The first one is layering. The second one is bold. The third one is size or scale. And the fourth one is spacing. If you want to put a label at the top, these are Micrography techniques. When you've got those 4 drawn out, please say done in the chat, and then I will start you off with the first technique. All right, so like I said, we're going to do like a pie piece of each one just to start with, and then you guys will go back and finish them off. So what I mean by a pie piece is here's one from first period. I got about this much done of each one, and then everyone went through and started finishing them off. All right, so layering. So when it comes to most of the techniques for micrography, legibility is not really the point. So for the very dark values for each of these, you're probably not going to be able to read them very well, maybe for size, scale, and spacing, but these first two, being able to read the words is not the point. You'll be able to read them in the lighter values because the letters will be more spaced out. But for layering, you're using the letters like a mark. So like hatching or cross hatching or stippling. So layering them is very important because remember, when there's more lines layered on top of each other, less of the paper shows through, making it look lighter or darker. And then if you space them out, more white paper shows through, making it look lighter. So just choose a word that you want to write over and over, or maybe you can choose a different word for each one. You can choose your name, whatever you want to use, up to you on this. I'm just going to use my last name because it's short and quick to write. So first you're just going to start off along this edge here. The size of the lettering doesn't necessarily matter as long as for this technique, try to keep it somewhat consistent. For most of these, the tendency is as you get to the lighter values, your letters just kind of get larger. That does happen and that's totally fine. But for the most part, try to just maybe just write in your handwriting size that you normally write in. Now, since we're layering, and this is the outer edge, and we are going for a shaded sphere. So the values of a sphere. Let me see if I can maybe keep that over here. We want to make sure that we're doing the edge very dark. So we're going to layer over it. So you're literally writing right over what you already wrote. Maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe 4, however dark you want to make it. Again, legibility for the dark values especially is not really the point. If you have a letter like mine with like a Y that goes outside, you can put it inside or outside, or you can just crop it either way. And as you move up, you're going to layer it less and less. So I had about like 3 or 4 layers on this one. I'm also going to layer it right on top of where I just wrote, but maybe a little bit higher up. So I might go over that one 2 times, maybe 3 if it looks like I need to make it a little bit darker. Do once more. And then next you're going to just continue up, but start making it a little bit further from those letters below it. So maybe not quite as layered over, like half the letters layered over now. And we're starting to see a gradual shift in values here. So it's very dark here, still pretty dark. Now we're starting to get kind of in a medium range. And then again, as you're moving up now, I may be just overlapping the bottom of the letters. Next layer, I'm going to have it sitting like right on top of the layer below it. Continuing that gradual shift of values. And try your best to work kind of pointing toward the center so that when you come back to do the rest, you're not having to like fix it. I still had to fix some of these a little bit, but they're not too bad. And then as we're really working toward the center, start leaving a little bit of spacing. So you can see I have these hovering above that last one. So there's a small example of layering. So we started built up, kind of covering 3/4 of the layer, maybe half of the layer sitting right on top of the previous layer, spacing a little and then spacing more and more. And then inevitably my last layer here, my letters just got kind of bigger. I needed to create one more value that showed more white through. So I just made my letters maybe like, I guess you could say a font size bigger. And you'll find when we get to the project, or especially when we do the example on Wednesday, these all kind of work together. You'll probably end up using 2 at the same time and not even really know it. So if you find that you're doing one while you're doing the other, don't worry about it. It just happens. Are we ready for the next one? I'm just doing a little section for now. All right, if you're not done with that one, you can always come back. So we're going to move on to bold. Now this one works best if you do have like a thick Sharpie and like a Sharpie like this or a pen Sharpie. You can use pencil and pen and just build up the boldness, which is what I'll show you how to do, since in most cases that's what you'll have to do. So don't worry if you don't have like various thicknesses of pens or markers, you can just do it with one. So for the first layer, it's going to need to be very bold. So what we're going to have to do is like quadruple up on those letters. So as you write them, do like 4 layers of them. Again, remember legibility for this outer layer, not super important. We're just trying to create the darkest value with the letters as marks as we can. I just did one small line there. Again, mine are about 4 layers deep. And you can do that with Sharpie. You can do that with, let me just get a regular pen. You can do that with pen. Just whatever that letter is, just do like multiple layers. You can do it with pencil even. So no matter what material you have, you can definitely still do that. Now, if you happen to have like normal Sharpie too, and you want to vary it a little bit, you can also use that for this first layer. But beyond that, it's probably, you can't really vary it very much from there because it's already kind of a thick marker point. So if you want to use it for just the most outer layer, you can. Now, as we move inward, we're just going to do less layers on those letters. So I did 4 here. I suggest doing maybe 2 layers of each after this point. So this one, I'm doing 3 layers on the letters. I'm going to do 2 layers of that, just so it kind of carries that value further. The layers don't have to be perfectly written. Micrography can have kind of like a sketchy, loose look to it if you want it to. It doesn't have to be perfectly written. So if you have quote unquote bad handwriting in your opinion, doesn't really matter because again, we're using it as marks. It's not like we're writing a handwritten paper, a handwritten letter or anything. I'm gonna do my second layer of those letters that have 3 layers to them. Then I'm gonna move into doing them just double layered. You can start to see the gradual shift happening there. I'm going to do one more with double, just so again, it carries that value a little bit further. Now, if you happen to have art pens, some of you might, I don't know, I know my advanced kids probably do. I'm not sure if anyone in this class does, but if you do, like art pens like this or like micron pens, they have various thicknesses and you can feel free to use them for bold especially. If you have a fine liner pen, that's really good for the lightest values. So whatever you have available to you, you can still use. Totally up to you. And then this last layer here, just a single layer of your letters. Maybe 2 layers of that. And then if you wanted to get even lighter, remember the options are usually to either make your letters larger or to space them out, just to create that more white space showing between those letters. So you can see just by using these two different techniques, they look very similar. And honestly, these also can go hand in hand. So you could always, for layering, you could use a bolder pen or something for the darkest parts and then a thinner pen as you work out if you have them. Or if you happen to have like a pencil set with darker pencils and lighter pencils, you can always use those in order because the darker pencils will look bolder, the lighter pencils will look lighter. You could even use a black colored pencil with just regular pencil. So the black one would be for the bold. And then as you moved up, you would more so use the pencil. So that is using the bold technique. Now I'm going to move on to size and scale. Again, if you didn't finish just the little pie section, you can go back when you finish the whole circle. So for size and scale, you're going to start with very small letters and then gradually move to larger letters. The spacing of them, try to keep consistent. Just kind of write it as if you're writing the word next to each other over and over again. But the smallest one, make pretty small so you have room for variation. And again, put the letters right next to each other. You would think, like, just at a quick thought, that larger letters means darker, but they mean lighter because remember, more of that white paper shows through. So the smaller, the more smushed together it is, the more it looks like a line. And as you work your way up, you're pretty much just upping your written font size. So if that's like an 8, this is like a 10, and a 12, and a 14, and so on. And how quickly you jump in word size is up to you. It probably really depends on what you're drawing. So if it's something smaller, like on Thursday, we'll be doing an I, you wouldn't really do giant letters on pretty much anything that's like a medium shade. It would mostly be used for really light shades. So you'll be using probably a lot of smaller letters along edges that might have like an outline. You'll use larger letters for large surface spaces, and then kind of those middle ones to add the variation in values. Now, what I tend to do when I write letters bigger is I kind of elongate them. You don't have to do it that way, but that's just kind of what my hand naturally does. There is a gradual shift of value. Now, I could have made that a little bit more gradual. Somewhere in here, these were probably a little bit too similar in size, but there's still a shift there. My example from earlier probably shows a little bit better. Okay, and the last one is spacing. And sorry if I'm going through a little quickly. Remember, you'll just go back and finish them up. So the last one is spacing. It's very similar to size and scale, except for we are then adding the addition of spacing those letters in addition to if you would like to change the size, but you don't have to. So this first layer here will look very similar to this one. You don't have to write it quite as small if you don't want to, but you are smushing those letters really, really close together. Then as you move up, you just start spacing your letters out a little bit more. So now mine are still pretty close to each other, but I'm trying to not let them touch. As I move up, I'm just increasing the space between the letters. I'm trying to keep mine the same size, but like I said, if you just naturally make them larger as you go toward the center, that's okay. So those are the 4 techniques. I'm going to pull up my one that I did earlier just so you can see how it looks when it's wrapped around the sphere to kind of create that shaded effect. You might notice that in some areas I did start kind of warping the letters a little bit. This is where it comes in where you're kind of combining things. So in some cases where you're getting toward that lightest area, the only way to really make it look like a light value is to use larger letters that are stretched because they show the most white paper through them. So like this one here, if I really wanted to continue those shades, I could just kind of space out the letters more, or I could do stretched out ones kind of written sideways around that center. So there's different ways you can improvise to fit the form that you're trying to create values for. Along the edges here, as I kind of went down toward the center, I did write at a bit of an angle. That's totally fine. You don't have to write perfectly along that circle shape. If it makes your eye want to bend the letters, you can bend the letters. That's totally okay. So with the remaining time, we've got only about 7 minutes left. When there's like 3 minutes left, I'll have you guys submit what you have. And then remember, you should still work on this to finish it for tomorrow. And just resubmit the same or the updated image so that I can see kind of the progression of how you completed it. So please do use your asynchronous time. That's what it's there for, is when you don't finish whatever was assigned in class, you finish it during asynchronous time. Remember, technically, I don't need it till the end of the week, but I would try to get like the first half of the stuff in a playlist done the first half of the week, and then the second half of the week. So let's just take a few minutes, work on this at like 12:37. I'll just quickly remind you guys to just take a picture of what you got so far and submit that. And then on Wednesday, we will apply this all to a practice image.